does shot like that have to make sense? What I mean is the exposure of all the elements, and by sense I mean should it look naturally to human eye? And I ask this because I have opened a trial account on ShotDeck to get inspiration for the interior shots. And I look through all the shots and some of them does not make sense at all. So for example, it seems it's middle of the day, but the exposure inside is higher than the exposure outside. Or it seems it's evening and the exposure inside is lower even though you have a tons of practical in the frame. Or sometimes there are a lot of warm practicals in the frame, but the lighting inside is still quite cold. So in a lot of shots it doesn't make any sense at all. Still, I think most of them look good and they still convey some feelings. So for example, this shot, it kind of seems to make sense because it's already blue hour outside. So you can see that the outside is darker than inside because I'm running this huge chandelier behind me, and this creates the exposure in the room behind me, and also this creates a headlight on my head. So this looks natural. And there is also some unknown light source that it shines on my face. I guess our brain thinks naturally there is another chandelier like that in front of me, which is probably true or not. So I think this one looks natural and normal for our brains, but should be always like that. And is it actually natural exposure of this shot? It doesn't look like it because now the light behind me is off, but I still have a nice hairlight, and still there is some exposure in the background, which is lower than myself, so it's not distracting. And is it really blue hour outside, or maybe is it actually totally dark? But I think actually that looks kinda believable, and it all makes sense for our brain, and it's motivated. So like the headlight, the room exposure is motivated by this light on the ceiling, and the unknown is the light which leads myself, but our brain naturally thinks that there is a twin light to this light in front of me, and that's why I have exposure like that. But actually, like all the exposure here is fake. So if I turn off all these lights, which might take a second because I have to use 3 different apps, maybe I managed to do it. So the natural exposure of this scene is like that. So just one light. So there is some natural exposure in the background, but this is with the added light, which like I think looks better, and it creates some interest in the background because I cannot push the chandelier higher. It's at full power. Actually, it has one setting, but if I want the higher exposure in the room, I have to use some additional light. Then I have a headlight motivated by that light on the ceiling, and I think this looks very believable, and our brain thinks automatically that this light behind me creates this on my head. This thing is kinda unknown, but again, our brain thinks it's something on the ceiling in front of me. And then this, not sure it's very believable, but it is kinda giving a hint that that's the either dusk or a dawn outside, so blue hour, and seems like that. Maybe someone would think it's a moonlight. Maybe you can think it's a moonlight. It's hard to actually tell what it is. Maybe the moonlight would be something like that. So maybe now you think it's a evening and it is moonlight, so maybe something like that. So I think this scene makes sense, but should it always make sense? For example, something like that. So I guess this one kinda also looks natural. So I guess it looks like it's a middle of the day now, judging from the position of the sun and the color of the light. And I guess there is another window in front of me. That's why my face is properly exposed. And this window behind me creates this hair light also, because there is a light bouncing around. There must be a second window because it's quite bright here. So the second window shines here and on my face, and that's why it's exposure like that. So this one also looks kinda natural for our brain, and our brain thinks it's a middle of the day, and that's why I have exposure like that. And it actually took 3 days to record this video because I have to grab proper times of day, and it's quite hard if you work 9 to 5, or have it took 3 days. Let's see. So this window in front of me is actually not lighting up this couch, and probably does not lit my face also, but at least it's the middle of the day outside, because it's really high exposure of the window, and there is no way you could create this exposure artificially. And it's natural thing that the window is overexposed. Sometimes people try to expose the window the same way as, for example, the talent, which looks fake, I think. Although we tend to believe it, actually it looks fake. If the face have higher exposure than the outside, it's not possible that the face is lit by another window with the same exposure, because it would be naturally darker. You would lose, maybe not much, but you would lose some light hitting your face, and it would be definitely darker than the window, which actually is also fake. And of course the hair light is also fake. So again, I think this looks believable, and you can think that that's the natural light. But it is actually all fake. It's middle of the night, like 10 past midnight, and I think this looks like it's a middle of the day. I'm not sure about the window. Maybe the exposure is too high. Maybe the sun is not high enough. Although it creates kind of believable shadows in the background. And I had to use the curtains, because if I didn't use it, you could see that the sky is actually dark and there is a single source of light, which sun is also single source of light, but it bounces from everything and everything is bright. And if I hadn't used the curtains, you could see dark patches outside. But I think this exposure is very believable, because the windows is exposed higher than my face, and our brain automatically creates a window, another window outside of the frame, because you basically experienced such shots or such situations in real life. So you know that for the face to be lit that way, there should be another window, and it's kind of natural that there are windows one close to another. That should be also window in front of me, because the houses usually have windows all around. So, and this shot looks kinda believable. But what about this one? I don't know. This looks kinda weird, because it seems there is a golden hour outside, something like that. But for some reason I look like a zombie, and it seems that this place I live in has only one window, because that have to be artificial light, since the sun is really golden at the moment, so there is something wrong about it. But you can actually see shots like that in movies, and I think nobody bats an eye. I don't know what feeling that would convey. Maybe that I work in a morgue, because usually in the morgue you got this really white, clean light. But this looks kinda fake, at least to me. That there is something wrong. If you look at this, your brain would tell you that there is something wrong, that there is something is not matching. And why it is so dark there? It seems it's bright outside, but it's really dark everywhere in the room, so there is something wrong. And also, so why my hair is so pale, since there is a really warm light behind me and my hair is really pale. So this does not add up. Although our brain would probably think that there is some kind of the neon light in front of me, or some kind of the cheap fluorescent light, and that's why I look like that. But I don't know if this makes sense, and I don't know if that has to make sense. And that's why I'm asking that question, because I have seen so many shots that looks really weird, but you still seems to somehow believe it, or you don't pay attention to it, because either maybe the action or the story is nice, and maybe because these unbelievable colors and light temperature create some kind of the mood, you believe there is something bad happening, so the light is colder, or maybe there is something nice happening, so the light is warmer for no reason, or maybe it's a romantic comedy and everything is really bright, which also doesn't make sense, because the exterior should be much brighter if there is a sunny day than interior. But usually in romantic comedies everything is bright and everybody believes that. So I think that lighting does not always have to make sense, but it's nice to be able to make it believable. And I guess it's nice to grab some shots either from Shot Deck or even Internet Movie Database and be able to recreate them. So I think I would play that game for some time in the future. My problem is that I don't have really nice interior now, because there is always a mess here, there is always something in the background, so it's hard to create a compelling shot here. Like, maybe this one is not that bad, but I had to move some furniture, I have to remove some items from the background to be able to do it. But what about this one? And to be honest, I'm just experimenting. It's the middle of the night and I got an idea that I want to create something. So this is supposed to be kind of the golden hour look. Maybe there should be some kind of the diffusion also in front of the light, so that might look better. But it is snowing and raining, so I don't want to go outside that many times. But in terms of the CCT, I think it looks okay. So our brain tend to believe what it sees and almost always create some kind of the virtual reality. Oh, there is a window in front of the actor, and there is another window there because this is quite bright and stuff like that. And for sure it's sun outside, because what else is that bright? Yeah. So I guess it's quite easy to convince someone that this is a specific time of the day and that the light behind me creates the hairlight on my head, if you place all the elements in the scene right. And actually this light outside is Storm 1200X, and since it is snowing and raining, it was snowing lightly before and now it is raining quite hard. Maybe it's not a storm, but it's raining quite hard. So I guess we can say it is weatherproof, definitely, because it's there for almost 2 hours. And maybe I have to create another unnatural scene too. So now I have no idea what it is, because I don't know what time of day it is. Is it blue hour? It's really bright outside, but it's kind of warm inside. I don't know what creates that look. Maybe there is a fireplace in front of me and that's why. But would the fireplace be that bright? This looks weird in my opinion. And also what creates this hair light, there is no warm light behind me, so what creates that, I don't know. But sometimes you can see lighting like that, or sometimes it's sometimes it's the other way around, that it's really warm outside but inside it's sterile but still brighter than outside, which is totally unbelievable. But we still tend sometimes to believe it, because we picture the stuff outside the frame and we tend to justify the lighting, which is actually kind of weird, because I looked at some shots from the movies I've seen before and I never pay attention to the fact that the lighting is kind of weird. But then when I looked at the shots, I thought that some of them are quite weird and it's hard to believe, or it's hard to imagine how the scene is created. Yeah, so it's nice to be able to play with different kind of lights. And maybe one more. Okay, that one is weird because you got a really warm practical behind me, but then you can actually see some light from the practical hitting my head. But then the hair light is really weird because it's quite blue, and also my skin is quite blue, which looks really weird in my opinion. But I'm not sure you would believe it. But maybe if it's a zombie movie or movie about the pandemic, then maybe somebody would think it's a believable look. So you never know. But I guess it's worthwhile to try and create the looks from bigger productions. So either shots from the shot deck or another free alternatives to the shot deck which exist, or maybe even just from Internet Movie Database, grab some stills and try to recreate them. And I think I also got an idea for more interesting interior, but I have probably wait 2 weeks to be able to pull it out. Cheers, mate!